Hello, everyone, and welcome to Camino Conversations. I am Rebecca Weston, and I'm trying to get to assist my guest Pam Marshall in joining me. But I did want to go live to those of you that were waiting for this conversation to let you know that we are still hoping to have it, and hoping that Pam can join us during this time while I'm waiting for her. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She at 64, after 20 years as a massage therapist and more than a decade teaching dance, she decided she wants to step into her lifelong dream of traveling the world. Um, so she has started her Substack to kind of document how she's going through that process of downsizing. And there she is. Hi, Pam. Thanks for joining us.
This is this was so weird trying to get on here.
Yeah, and for those of you watching, this is Pam's first time on a Substack Live, and yeah, so it's not always an easy thing to to navigate
To
the technical
navigate. Yeah, Substack is not the most intuitive place that
necessarily. Well,
uh,
I was just giving a little overview of who you are, Pam, saying that you've decided to embark on this nomadic lifestyle, but you're in the process now of downsizing and getting ready for that journey.
yes.
But that also you have walked recently 200 miles on the Camino
Yes.
Portuguese.
Yes.
Uh, and so Pam has had this lifelong curiosity about the world and how it all works. And she's on this mission to become a nomad and travel on a budget, having this nomadic life. She shares about her journey and her process on her Substack called The Frugal Traveler, which I invite you to check out for sure. She has some great um, information there, and it's great to see how there's a lot of nomads that are out on Substack, but it's interesting to see your process, Pam, because you're not out there yet. You're in the
Yeah.
process of getting.
And that's why I wanted to start it, from somebody seeing it from the perspective of like looking at everybody else, but I'm actually in the planning process at this point.
Gotcha. Cool.
Because most other people are looking back at it.
And you're in the midst of it.
I'm
So,
I'm right I'm right in the middle of the storm.
so let's step into the Camino world for a little bit here. Tell us, how did you first come across the Camino de Santiago?
I was looking around Facebook on a lot of groups for nomads because I didn't realize that Substack had it. It was still a somewhat new, thing that I was seeing on the peripheries. And so I was looking around things like nomad groups, expat groups, travel groups, whatever I could find.
Hmm.
And I came across this thing about the Camino. And the more I read about it, the more I was fascinated by the stories and inspired by how many older people were doing it.
And about how long ago was that you first heard about it?
Um, Probably about a year.
Okay, gotcha.
I
So
think
you moved
not
pretty.
9 months to a year, yeah. I started going, "I think I could do this," and then early last year, I started making tentative, ideas and plans of what I wanted to do.
So a lot of people read about the Camino and they're like, this would be kind of cool. Maybe I could do this.
Yeah,
But it takes them a while to get to the point where they actually say, okay, I'm going to do this. Was
yeah.
there something that happened that you said, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to make this happen?
I mean, there's been a lot of things happening. I've been considering, moving out of the country. I looked at Belize. I've written about that where I made 2 trips, and one specifically in July to see how hot it was, because I have problems with heat, and it was really sad because as much as I loved it, I thought I was gonna die. I mean, I had a whole week of total misery. The first week wasn't so bad. The second week, I just couldn't stay hydrated,
Hmm.
and I realized that was not the ideal place for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And good for you to test it out because a lot of people, you know,
I've seen so many people like, "I just went, I did nothing about it, I moved." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not that brave."
and it's kinda like the Camino, you can do it however you wanna do it, but yeah, for some of us, we need a little bit more, planning and preparation, kind
Yeah,
of thing. So speaking of planning and preparation, did you do training for the Camino before you left?
yeah. So I spent maybe 6 weeks total. I started, the first 2 weeks just trying to get out as much as I could. Whenever there's a rail trail behind my house, and so which is a converted trail from an old railway bed. And I would go out there if I had a gap between clients and start walking. And then about 4 weeks before I started carrying weight, and I got myself up to about 5 miles a day. And I'm a massage therapist. And the one thing, I may not know a lot about Caminos, but I know a lot about bodies. So the one thing I've been advising people is that I don't feel you need to train much more than 5 miles a day, especially for the Portuguese, because it's flatter.
Mhm.
I would say if you're going to be doing the main one across the top there,
Camino Frances or
the
the
yeah,
Norte?
that one. Um, because you go over the Pyrenees first, I would say do some hill training of some form. And if it means going up and down stairs, do that. But, I don't think you need much more than 5 miles, altogether.
Mhm.
My biggest thing that I've explained to people is, as soon as I heard there was cobblestones and stuff like that, I was like, I'm going to do more balance training because this is something I hand to my clients when they have things like plantar fasciitis and other issues. Um, I send people to this site. I don't. Is it okay that I can mention a site?
Yep.
Okay, it's called the Foot Collective, and it's a great place with lots of free um, videos
Mhm.
about how to fix foot problems. But it's also really good just for balance and foot strength because the problem is our foot's meant to spread out
Mhm.
and we often wear tighter shoes. And on the Camino, we really want to be able to let our feet do as much as it can. The muscles will adapt very quickly. Within a few days, you'll be sore maybe a couple days, but they'll adapt pretty quickly. Just take your electrolytes. That's one thing I did forget the first couple days, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why my legs hurt. But the other thing was, just it's the tendons, the ligaments, and the joints that need more training.
Mhm.
And so by doing that, you're going to actually help yourself not have some of the foot issues I was seeing people having when I was there.
Yeah, and the balance is a huge thing because
Yeah.
you and I kind of conversed a little bit about this over Substack that,
Yeah.
most of our lives, if you're in the US, you go from your paved driveway to your car to the paved parking lot of the supermarket to the sidewalk in the
Exactly.
supermarket to the flat floor inside. We're not walking on uneven surfaces
Exactly.
as part of our day-to-day life normally
Yeah.
in the US.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mhm. Uh,
Yeah.
and the
So
Camino is full of
unless you're an active hiker in an area with at least hills,
yeah,
you're not getting that kind of training.
exactly.
Or if you go to the gym and,
Mhm,
work on
exactly.
the stair climber or whatever.
Mhm.
So,
And I tell people, getting those steps in is great, even if it's just all flat and you're on a road or whatever. The endurance is important, but recognizing that on the Camino, there are plenty of rocky paths, and sometimes you're walking right on a farm road or on the side
yeah.
of on a sidewalk too. I mean, so there's plenty of times where it's not all treacherous or anything like
Yeah,
that.
I saw your photos of all the rocks, and that, if you do it again, get your camera down low and look at
Yes.
the perspective from the ground. That's where you'll really start to see, like, just how rocky some areas are.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, thank you for that for that. So yeah, and what Pam is mentioning is I do a newsletter every Sunday where I talk about various Camino topics because my business is helping people plan their walks on the Camino de Santiago through the Camino calls. And I also lead small group trips on the Camino. And so each week I'm publishing different information or stories or things like that to both inspire people, inform people about the Camino. So yeah, my last one was inspired by you actually, Pam, because I wrote one.
I saw it.
I wrote one 2 weeks ago about, training for the Camino and how it doesn't have to be very complicated. But then you brought
Yeah.
up this idea of training on uneven surfaces, and I thought it was so important that I made that my next post to talk about
Yeah.
um, this exact issue of how little we have
Yeah.
that in our day to day
And
life.
and the average American just really, we're living in shoes that are like a soft cast, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
There's that. People are worried about the feet looking pretty, and, this is our foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really, whether you're gonna walk a Camino or not, look up that site, get yourself doing some of those exercises. You will thank me, your body will thank me, your knees and hips, you will thank me, so, and they'll thank you as well.
And that thing about, flattening our feet as much as possible, it's interesting you mentioned that because, on I don't know if it was my 3rd or 4th Camino, I met a couple from Australia who had specifically started wearing the toe socks so that
Yes.
they could flatten their feet out a bit, um,
Yes.
and then they got a wide toe box shoe,
Yes.
and they said that their feet they didn't usually have wide feet, but by doing all of these exercises, they ended up making their feet actually wider, uh,
Yes.
so I
And
didn't
and 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 that's the thing is that people don't realize that it's like I say, it's a soft cast and your foot gets trained there.
Mhm,
And so and there's so many conversations over on the other platform about, and the people are like, "What shoe should I wear?" It's like, you need to wear the one that works for you now,
mhm,
you know? But
yep,
the best thing you can do is train your feet, because I think the reason a lot of people get problems, especially the blisters and stuff, is that when you're walking couple miles a day around your house, around your town, whatever, even 5 miles a day, but you're kind of meandering through life mostly, um, your feet will go, "Okay, I'll accept this." But when you're now walking 12, 14 miles a day or more, your feet go, "I'm going to spread out." And that's why people like, I have to get shoes, a size up. Not necessarily, because a size up is longer. Your feet may get a little longer as they spread, but what you need is the width. And if you just buy, and then if you go for wide shoe, that's classified wide, the heel's going to be wider as well. So then you can get other problems from that.
mhm,
So training your feet to get wider and allow them to do their job so they can spread out and like literally I wore zeros, which are my the sole on mine were probably about that thick.
mhm,
I could feel the cobblestones, like the underneath, like the little pokey bits in the cobblestones. But then if you're going over anything uneven, my foot could spread out and it gives you more sort of grip as well.
gotcha,
Right. And then so having that doing that with your feet, those everything will spread out and muscles will start to do their job because they can't do their job when they're like this.
yeah, yeah,
You know?
and I think too, like, and I've said this before in my post that I'm right there with you, Pam, when I see on, different Facebook groups or YouTube channels and people are like, "Oh, these are the best shoes ever for the Camino." And I wish
Mhm.
people would just say for me, because it's
Yes.
very your feet are very different from somebody else's.
Yes.
I can't go on YouTube and say, "Oh, I'm gonna get these shoes because this person said so."
Yep.
And I often tell people, especially in the US, I don't get paid by REI, but if you're a member, you can
Yeah.
get shoes, buy new shoes, and you can go out on trails and test them out.
I I took shoes back.
Yeah, yeah, and then you can go back and say, "These ones
My
didn't work."
my only frustration with REI is that to me, they don't have enough of the barefoot style shoes, enough options.
Gotcha.
They seem to be pushing the Hokas right now.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
a lot mine near me at least, a large section was Hokas, and I walked in, I was like, because Hokas are
Depends
like
on
it's
yeah.
like trying to walk on a memory foam bed, and I have a video a picture on one of my things that actually I don't know how I can but it kind of pushes your toes upwards
Mhm,
a little bit, and the whole thing's curved. So it's like doing the strike off for you, and you're not really using the big toe, which is supposed to be, the arch is meant to sort of be sort of give as you walk. And then so it goes down, and then as you stride, you push off the big toe, and that energy from that absorption
mhm.
is sent to the big toe to help you propel forward.
Right.
The design keeps you from being able to do that.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I should mention for those of you that are just joining us, I'm joined by Pam Marshall, who is actually, a massage therapist, so she does know about
Know a little something about feet.
feet and what she's talking about there with
Yeah.
especially with regards to the Camino as she has just done 200 miles on the Camino Portuguese.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about, ahead of time and telling people that you're doing this.
Yeah.
You wrote on your site that your youngest daughter was convinced you couldn't do it, your oldest daughter cheered you on, and your
Yep.
friends offered a mix of encouragement and concern. Um,
Yes.
so do you think some of that doubt was really like love and concern as
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, my youngest daughter is living in England, so she doesn't know what I'm up to most of the time. And, I'm 64, so she thought old people don't do these things. My most of my friends are dancers. I'm also a West Coast swing dancer, so they know I'm pretty active. So they were more like, oh, they were probably more of a that's brave than
Mhm.
can you physically do it?
Yeah.
And you're going alone, and things like that. And a lot just didn't know what it was. So that was great. And then my oldest daughter, she and I go hiking, so she had fewer concerns. And, so I told my youngest daughter, I said, look, I could show you all kinds of stories about people in their 80s doing this.
Yes.
You know, I said I will go at my own speed, which I kind of did. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yep. We'll get
Um,
to
we're getting to that. But yeah, the idea was that if I need to, I can quit.
that.
If I need to, I can stop.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't in any danger. It's well traveled. I mean, there are the occasional, stories about somebody having some weird stuff going on, but it's usually just weird stuff. And I haven't heard of anybody getting hurt
Mhm.
or whatever. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it's more like, there's always going to be the weird person wherever you are in the world
Yes.
that makes you go, ooh.
I tell people, over 500,000 people walked into Santiago last year.
Yes,
And in a
exactly.
sea of 500,000 people, things are gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that the Camino is perfect and there's never any problems. It's like any other place where there's a
Yeah.
500,000 people doing something. You
I'd say it's it's I walked the 200 miles, and I would say I never felt endangered in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm. And I've done, I don't know, 15 Caminos now or so, and I've done half of them on my own,
Yeah.
and other half with other people. So I have both of those experiences, and
Yep.
I say the same thing to people that, you have to recognize, first of all, what country you're in and what is allowed and isn't allowed there by law. And then you also have to recognize, that you're kind of with this community of people if you're on some of the most popular trails. So I tell women that are traveling alone, you can just stop and wait for somebody else to come along. And I've met women who
Yeah.
have said this to me in particular. Hey, tomorrow morning, would you mind meeting me in the morning? We don't have to walk side if you don't want to, but I just want somebody to kind
Somebody within sight.
exactly, or keep an eye on, just because I know this next part might be a little challenging or whatever. So you can ask for help.
And it's nice to have it's nice to have a human somewhere in view because the amount of times that you might miss one of the arrows,
Mhm.
and you're like, I haven't seen anybody in a while, and then you can get on your device and see if you're right.
Yeah, yeah, and so for those that don't know about the Camino de Santiago, it is, marked, but there's tons of routes, there's not just one route,
Yeah.
and so depending on the route you're on, it could depend on, how well it is marked, but
Uh,
the most popular ones, the Camino Francés, the Camino Portuguese, anything that where you're in the province of Galicia, which is where Santiago de Compostela is, which is your destination, those all have these stone monoliths now,
yeah.
every 3 seconds, it seems. But
A
the
lot of places are just spray paint.
yeah, a lot of them are just spray yellow arrows or spray painted,
And then
or yep.
the spiritual just had these tiny little, stone things with a silver thing on it that could blend into the background. Like,
There you
you had to be much more aware
yeah.
on that one.
And my earlier Caminos was before the apps came around.
Yeah.
So now
God
there's
bless.
nice. You can just pull the app out and it shows where you
Yeah,
are and where the Camino is. And you
yeah.
know if you're and that's why I always recommend to people, make sure you have, get cellular coverage. I mean, there are some routes where you're gonna go through areas where you don't have cell coverage. But it does
But
help to
even so, actually, the Ninja map will, I think, still show you that because that's
work
all
off.
GPS.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
done but through the networks.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. So yeah, even though the app, like the
Yeah.
features of other features don't work, the map itself can still work, which is awesome. You let's see here. How many now you did 200 miles and you walked from Porto to
Yes.
Santiago de Compostela.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that is the Camino Portuguese because it is coming up from Portugal. And it crosses the Portuguese-Spanish border, and you spend your last 100 or so kilometers or your last 60 miles walking through Spain. So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that route specifically?
Um, it was kind of a testing ground because I don't do a lot of mountainous hiking, at the moment. I mean, I do some, but not as much as I'd like to. So I just and also just wanted to see if I liked it. Porto sounded like a beautiful place to go anyway. But it was really kind of a testing ground for me on a lot of things, physically as well as, how am I gonna deal with the albergues, the hostels?
Mm.
Um, my plan was to just wing it, and I ended up caving to booking ahead,
Mhm,
because my nervous system at that point was just like, I'd much rather feel like so I at least had a bed because I knew I was so tired at the end of the day.
mhm,
Um, so, that's the next discomfort I will work on is just being okay with, because now I've done it. I've seen so many people do it around me, and I have some better ideas about how to, navigate that part. Just physically doing that kind of mileage because I was thinking once I start the nomad thing, I want to do more of that.
mhm.
Seeing how I was around the people, I also needed a break. There'd been things going on in my life that I just needed to get a break from. So, so yeah, it was a lot of reasons you know, that I decided to take the leap, and Porto just seemed like a good jumping off spot. And it turned out just by chance that I knew a dance group for my West Coast swing stuff that I do was in Porto.
Ah,
And right before I booked my flights, they were like, "Oh, we're bringing in this professional from California who's somebody I wanted to study with, but too far away." And I was like, and I'm attacking 4 days on beforehand, and I actually went and I danced and hung out with a bunch of dancers and then took off.
wonderful, yeah.
So that was the other reason for starting there.
Porto's also nice for a starting point because you can fly in there easily.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
it
Although I did keep my expenses down, I went, with a layover in Madrid.
Mhm.
That airport is nuts. I
It's
mean,
enormous as well, yeah.
well, yeah, but it was also like the line to get through the first thing with your passports was
Mhm.
like a mile long and like 6 bodies wide. At least it
So
seems like a mile.
a new part of the because there's a new system that they've put in place, the entry exit system, EES, and I'm
Oh,
wondering if that's what you got caught up with? Did you have to go to a computer first and do your finger?
no, no, on that one, we were standing up and luckily somebody near me was on I think on the same plane, and we were all going so they flagged somebody down, we did sign language, showed them the things, and they were like, "Come with us," and they got us to the front of the line.
Yeah,
So, if you are in that kind of situation and you don't speak the language, it's okay. Somebody's usually walking up and down these things, and if you can flag them down and just literally show them your thing with the time,
yeah.
if you're starting to get that tight, they will get you to the front of the line. Because I only had maybe an hour
Mhm.
layover, which in an international airport,
Can be tight.
is pretty tight. It
And
may have been
I
an hour
tell
and a half,
people,
even that was too tight.
yeah, you can show your ticket and they'll be able to help you, but do not assume at all that they will speak English.
Exactly.
This is I tell people over and over again, I don't care
Yeah,
that you're in the capital city of Spain in their
yeah,
biggest airport, doesn't matter.
yeah,
There's a guarantee, especially in Spain, that
yeah,
someone that you run into is just gonna speak English. So, just
yeah.
be aware of that.
Mm. The great thing with that is if we really needed to, we could have gone to Google Translate,
Mhm.
and we could have just said, "We think we're gonna be late," when if they could have then, told us what to do. Fortunately, just by showing the ticket and the fact that we had maybe at that point 30 minutes to get to our
Mhm.
plane, and we still had, like, 2 things to get through and a bunch of hiking. Yeah,
So,
you're like, "Yeah," and you just
it
took, like, 6 or 8 of us. Yeah,
and they do usually look through those lines, and ask is that if anybody's, needs a
yeah.
quick transfer or
That's what I'm saying, somebody was walking up and down, so
and so yeah, the Madrid airport is huge. It is yeah, it takes a bit to get through it. And the other thing is that new system for those of you that are just joining us, the EES system. There's two things that are going into place in Europe in the coming months and maybe year for ETIAS. The EES is the entry exit system, whereby anyone who's not a member of the EU or doesn't have an EU passport has to do something when they first get there with their fingerprints, scanning the passport, et cetera, before you actually go to the passport officer.
yeah.
And I could be using the wrong language here, customs
Yeah.
officer, I'm not sure exactly, but look up
Yeah.
EES if you're planning to go into the Madrid airport. They've put it on pause in the Lisbon airport because it was such a mess. Um, and so they're supposed to roll out EES, you know, by somewhere in April 26th. I was just looking at a YouTube video from a guy in Spain who was saying this. The other system is the ETIAS system, and that is one where you're going to have to register ahead of time that you are going to be in the EU. So they're doing all of this so that it can be more automatic because, for example, Americans, if you are not an EU citizen, you can only spend 90 days within 180 in all of the Schengen zone countries. So it's not like you can spend 90 days in Spain and then jump over to France. They're all part of the Schengen zone. So you can only be in those countries 90 days. And so this is going to make all of that electronic so that they can track who's overstayed their visa or their 90 days. So, okay. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm here with Pam Marshall, who just walked 200 miles on the Camino Portuguese. If you have questions and you have a Substack account, you should be able to type them into the box there, and we would be happy to take those as well. Pam, you talked about some things that you were saying that you learned, and I wasn't sure if it was with accommodations or um, with the terrain, things
Yeah.
that you learned that you now know. Can you tell us what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, I'd done the thing about kind of some of the things that I learned about myself. Like I said, my I just wasn't ready to take that leap into just taking a chance at getting one of the municipal albergs. Because the recommendation is you get there by 2 o'clock, and you start putting your bags in a row and hope you get a spot. Um, and I was finding that, I was reasonably comfortable. It didn't help the first day. My initial place that I pre-booked canceled like half an hour before I got there.
Mhm.
And so I ended up walking 3 or 4 more miles. So I ended up doing like 18 miles on my first day. That was carrying my pack, which is a whole nother thing, like trying to keep your pack weight down. That's a science.
Yeah.
And so between the maybe a little bit extra weight that I should have tried to figure out how to dump, and I did, but it was hard. Um,
And
between
I'd
that
like
extra
I'd
miles,
like
it
to
kinda set me up for being a little bit, like just really sore and tired for almost the first week,
Mhm.
and a little bit of a shin splint and things like that. So I just knew I really wanted to be able to get a bed without walking around town, going to 5, 6 different albergs, hoping I could get a spot.
And I wanna point out to people that don't know about the Camino, there are multiple options for places to stay, and what Pam is talking about is the hostels, which are called albergues in Spain, and some of them are first come, first serve. Uh, Now there are lots of accommodation options, many of which you can reserve ahead,
Yeah,
and so if you are going to send your luggage, and not carry a full-on backpack, you need to know where you're staying because they need to know where to drop off your luggage. So a lot of
and it's
people.
limited, and they don't all accept. There's certain
Right, it's
drop-off points.
only there's some of these hostels do not accept bags being transferred, but every other accommodation does.
Yeah,
Private accommodations will absolutely accept your bag because they are private businesses, and they want your business. So
yeah,
it's a pretty extensive network of luggage transfer systems. There are multiple of them, along the way. So I just wanna let people who know that are listening are like, "Oh my god, hostels." Um, when I do my trips and most of the people I work with, they're actually not staying in hostels, and they're staying in more of these private accommodations for that very reason, wanting to know, okay, I tell people the Camino is hard enough. You don't have to make it harder. If
yeah,
you want the challenge of, not knowing where you're going to sleep for the night, go for it. And I've done Caminos that way too. And there's something freeing about that. But I tell people the same thing with a pack. You don't have the Camino is going to be a challenge no matter which route you choose, no matter when you do it, no matter how you do it.
yeah,
You don't need to make it any harder than it is unless you want to.
yeah. And the thing is, I would probably do it again with my pack. I'm gonna actually try a different pack because I think I could. I got one with a frame. I think I'm gonna try one without. I just wanted to not have it on my back
Yeah.
and be sweaty with it. But I may just have to, you know, that's a trade off. Um,
Yeah.
and I did carry it for the first bit, and that was one of my lessons is that, I tend to muscle through everything. Um, that's just how I am. I'm an only child.
Yeah.
My parents told me that, one of my most frequent phrases was, I'd rather do it myself. So,
Okay. Yep. Yep.
so I'm one of those people. But, I'm 64 now, and, I hadn't managed to train maybe as extensively as some people do.
Mhm.
Um, and, uh, and like I say, I'm not convinced it would have made a huge difference. I think it was more the pack weight than anything else, because as soon as I didn't have the pack and
Mhm.
started sending it ahead, because I did send it ahead somewhat early I think it's when the shin splint first started. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier. Um, what was frustrating is my pack was roughly 18 pounds, and I'd lost almost 18 pounds at that point. And I'm like, well, I'm carrying the same amount of weight, but it carries differently.
You
And
do.
that was a real interesting experience, because I'd never done anything like that.
And I also
Um,
tell people, even if you're not carrying a pack, you should still pack light because
yes.
even if if they're transition or transferring your luggage for you, they might bring it to the front lobby of a place, but your room might be up on the second floor, which to you Americans, that's our third floor. And so you have to, be aware that you will still have to cart your luggage in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is right in your room when you get there, but
Yeah.
sometimes you still have to bring it places. It's just a good exercise, no matter if you're carrying your bag or not, that you pack light.
It's a good exercise for life to learn how little you don't need, how little you need.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we have just about 10 minutes left. So, again, for anyone who's watching us live, feel free to type in any questions that you have about the Camino Portuguese or anything that we've talked about so far. I want to talk about the Camino kind of tends to give us what we need, they say, not necessarily what we want. Um, and one of the things that you said to me that you really learned on the Camino was how important community is,
Yes.
to your success on the Camino and to many things in life. Can you give us
Yes.
examples of community on the Camino?
Yeah. I think that's one of the most magical thing about the Camino is that, like, I started, and I probably walked almost a mile, because I started where the river meets the sea in the Rio Douro, I think, in Porto. And so it wasn't until I got about a mile or so up there that I started seeing other bodies. But from that point on, you usually had somebody around you, and just like talking with people, helps pass the time, and you learn some stuff about them. But also, I was struggling with the pack, like I said, with the weight. And I had met a gentleman and his son on that first day, in that first few miles. And we chatted and walked for maybe 5 miles. And then they wanted to go see this castle. And I just already knew that, even though I was feeling great, I was like, I know I have a longer walk than I would like. So I'm just going to keep going. And so I would see them on and off. You'd be in coffee shop and you'd watch them walk by and wave hi and whatever. And I was just outside Vigo, and Vigo is where it starts to go up. And I was struggling because of the pack weight, and I would have made it, but it was tough. And I heard these voices behind me, and I knew it was this gentleman. He had a very distinct voice, and they caught up with me, and we walked a bit, and then all of a sudden he stopped. And he said, "Would you like me to carry your pack for you?" And I looked at him. I was like, "Don't say that if you don't mean it," because I will say yes. And that for me was a big one. I don't normally usually I'm like, "No, I'm fine." So he carried it for maybe 5 miles to my albergue, and we actually stopped for a snack and, all that. And his son was with him. His son carried his other pack, 'cause they both had day packs. They were sending their stuff ahead. And, that was just like, just the kindness of somebody to carry my pack. You know, Other people would give you Advil, if you're really hurting. Somebody gave me some electrolyte tablets at one point, and then, but then, like, because I'm a massage therapist, I had one morning where a couple of women were really struggling with their feet, and I had K tape, kinesiology tape, and so I taped up their feet for them. And that's really the magic in the Camino is everybody just like whatever you can do, whatever you got or whatever, people. And then like I decided I didn't want to carry I had one of those sleeping bag liners. So I decided that was a pound I didn't need because I'd used it once. Turned out I could have used it later, but I survived. Um, and I think it was at the same albergue. I had already lost. I had these real thin zero sandals for the evenings, and also just for when I didn't want to wear my shoes. And I left them. I think they'd slid under the bed, and I didn't realize they weren't in my pack. And so I got to the next thing, they weren't there, and I was really frustrated. And it turned out somebody had left some Tevas, which were a lot thicker, but they're similar style, and they were exactly my size. So
Huh?
people actually leave things that they don't want to carry or use that aren't working for them, and
Mhm.
other people pick them up.
Yeah.
And I just thought, that was such a like it was like the Camino Angels, that Camino Magic thing happened because I was just so frustrated. I wanted to have something for the showers, but also there's times that I just wanted to walk in the sandals and,
Yeah.
with my feet used to that. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of people actually do switch. Just if you are on the Camino and you bought your special shoes and they're not working, go into one of the stores there if you don't have them and look at some of the hiking sandals, because a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, I wish I'd known this from day one."
Listener. Yeah.
But yeah, that magic of people helping each other is, you know, that's the best part.
It is. It is. And yeah, I feel like I remember the first time I took my father on a Camino. I had done a few at this point, and we had plenty of these Camino Magic kind of experiences and just amazing things. And when we were finished, he said to me at one point, he said, "Is it always like this?" And I said, "What do you mean like this?" And he said, "Just these incredible people helping each other out, and this story like we had with these guys."
Yeah,
And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, every single time I do the Camino, there are stories."
yeah,
And it's just, I'm getting chills now just saying that.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible, and I think more than a few of us have said, "Wow, if the world could just operate like we do on the Camino,
Yes.
we could
Oh,
all."
the amount of times I said that, and when people complain about people, coming into their countries, and these people are often walking 1,000 miles to get there, or, going through stuff. Walking 200 miles made me even more aware of just, like, how resolved you have to be, and in that case, maybe desperate,
Mhm.
to be able to do that, especially you're towing a kid behind you. I couldn't
Right.
imagine doing
Yeah,
that walk with a little kid screaming the whole way.
yeah, we're
Uh,
very privileged that we are choosing to walk 200 miles.
exactly, we get to choose this, and we get to say, "Okay, I wanna take a day off
Mhm.
in a town," or not, you know?
We're not escaping something otherwise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really good to keep that in mind too, that, we're very lucky to have this choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in total agreement with you. For our just to finish up our conversation, I have a lot of people that are considering the Camino and, wondering, can I do this? Should I do this? And the last question I always ask my guests is what kind of advice or what things would you say to someone who's interested but on the fence about doing it?
First off, don't worry about what your friends say, because if they haven't done it, they don't know.
Mhm.
And if you've been doing the research and you're comfortable with it, then, do it. Or at least start, making more steps to plan, or at least do more research. Um, so yeah, it's like anything. If don't take advice from people who haven't done something. Don't worry so much about, are you fit enough or not? If you can, like I say, if you can try to get yourself up to 5 miles a day, and the other thing is you can go at your own speed. So I have a friend who, having watched this and thought, and was like cheering me on, she's like, I never thought I could do it, but I found a group again on Facebook, Slow Walkers on the Camino.
Mhm.
And she says, maybe I can do it at my speed. I said, you absolutely could. There's no way you have to do it. If
Yeah.
you want to do 3 miles a day, you do 3 miles a day.
Mhm.
And, when you're looking around on the Camino, there's a lot of people on this Camino that do not look like hikers.
Oh, yeah.
They don't look like they are physically, you know, in our mindset,
Mm.
somebody who would walk a couple 100 miles or more.
Yeah.
And yet, they just, again, they're going at their speed. They've found the shoes that work for them. They've found, everything else that works for them, whether they use a Vaseline, the toe socks, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And I've even seen things of people that are in wheelchairs,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
know, somebody, like, had a handicapped son that she had this thing behind her that she's pulling, for those people, they often maybe have to do certain, reroutes around certain things,
Mhm.
but they're out there, they're doing it. So, there's no excuse to not do it unless you physically and even the people who physically can't, maybe they're so handicapped. I saw another one where there was, I think, 4 or 5 people being wheeled in by these people there's organizations that will
Yeah.
do that and
Mhm.
help the handicapped people, and there was another, I talked to a guy who had already done one route a few weeks previous, helping guide blind people.
Yeah.
So he got taught how to let them know when they had to be careful and whatever, and how to get them over the different things. So there's really no reason to not do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've also volunteered many times along various Camino routes, and it is just like you said, it's amazing to see who shows up and what, when you volunteer, just like on the Camino in general too, sometimes you really, people are only with me usually for a night or a day if I'm volunteering at a pilgrim office, but or just a few hours, but you still get to hear all these stories and what people have come through to get to where they are,
Yeah,
literally to just show up on the Camino is pretty amazing. So
yeah,
it's inspiring to see all of those people, um,
absolutely.
some of whom you can see the
Yeah,
challenge that they're facing, and others of whom you have no idea.
yeah.
And
And many people are there because they've had a big life thing happen.
mhm,
A
yeah,
lot of the young people that I saw, they either had just finished college or they started a job and decided they didn't like it after they graduated college.
mhm,
And they were, like, in the in between, like, well, now what? And
yes,
so they were like, you know what? I'm just walking to
mhm.
figure it out.
I say that
Um,
it's usually a lot of people in transition,
yes.
or if it's a first time Camino,
Yeah,
I a lot of people I've met who, just retired or just, lost a spouse or just got divorced,
exactly.
changed, just lost a job or changed, are gonna do a new career, like you said. So it's um eh, definitely, there's a million reasons that people walk the Camino de Santiago and
And
uh
it doesn't have to be religious at all.
definitely
They
not.
you go in any of these places and, it seems like it's supposed to be this religious thing. They don't ask you
No.
if you're a Christian. They don't ask you if you're religious,
It's
they don't care.
And that's the thing, is the Camino does have religious, I mean, it was started for religious
Yes,
reasons,
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, you're exactly right that there is one of the things that I love most about the Camino is how little judgment there is. You will
Yes.
find people who judge, "Oh, you're
Are
so."
you doing it the right way?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just let that go
Right.
because, yeah,
The
there's
Camino hasn't worked its magic on them yet.
yeah, there's no way. But in general, yeah, it's a pretty incredible, opportunity, experience, the people you meet, all of that. So, I wanna thank you, Pam, for joining us. I mean, I always feel like these conversations could go on forever because
Yes.
once you've done a Camino, you really love talking about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love talking about it with other people and as I said, helping people plan their Caminos and leading my own trips on the Camino. So yeah, and so for those of you that have joined us live, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I do Camino Conversations every Wednesday at 11 Eastern time during my interview season, as it were, when I'm not out on Camino. And I also have Camino the Camino Calls, which is my Substack. And every week I'm putting out different information about the Camino to hopefully inspire and inform you. So I invite you all to join that if you want to get more Camino information. So Pam, thank you very much, and I wish you
Thank you for inviting me. This has been fun.
absolutely,
It's nice talking with somebody that knows, the Camino. So,
yeah, absolutely to share that experience.
yes, exactly.
It is. It is. Okay. Well,
Mm,
thank you so much. I wish you a
thank
great.
you. Right. Take care.
I know.